How are you doing today, my lazies? I've been waiting to do this video for a while, and I'm sure many have their own opinions and theories on how to salvage the ruins of the once great juggernaut of entertainment. The fall of the MCU should be a college course at this point, because there's no way something this profitable became the laughingstock of the world so quickly after its success. Let me run down the conflicts and resolutions for you, and even promote a series I've been working on, since I love to write, for an MCU that would profit a lot better than the once high-paid juggernaut. And with that being said, to understand my setup, let's look at the factors that made the MCU the way that it is. The main issue was properties being split amongst multiple companies. Stan Lee knew what he was doing by doing this, but his legacy didn't outlive him, so his plan failed in the end. He was trying to keep everything split so that just in case one company fails, the other can make a great movie using other characters. When it was still in his control, the vision could be seen as to where the MCU was headed at the time. He cared more about legacy, whereas everyone else around him cared about money, not realizing that passion for your project will make you the most money, as seen with the Infinity Saga success. Due to Sony owning Spider-Man, Fox owning X-Men, and Universal owning Hulk, their hands were tied, and they didn't even plan to make an MCU in the first place. The movies just did so great, they decided to make a whole movie universe on a whim. Now, knowing all that knowledge, how would I have set up a live action MCU, and why would I set it up that way? To start, I'd make a story map. In case you hadn't noticed, the number 3 is a very powerful and addictive number. Hence, Trinity, Big 3, 3-man squads, 3 figureheads, and so on. Knowing that the number 3 is so prominent, what 3 would need to be at the forefront as the faces to streamline new generations? Well, powers are usually generated in 3 fashions that can branch into others: magic, science, and tech. Like at the Justice League, for example, the Trinity is Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman. That's science, magic, and tech. Who in Marvel fits this setup? Iron Man, Thor, and Captain America. The reason Steve and Tony need to be the faces is the fact that most of the major storylines for the Avengers center around them and their dynamic. Thor is the best to represent magic since he's a god and brings neutrality between 2 opposing forces. Now, knowing this Trinity, how would this set up for evolution down the line? Well, we know we need 3 different teams. DC does this better with Justice League, Teen Titans, and Young Justice. The Marvel equivalent would be the Avengers, X-Men, and the New Warriors or New Avengers. Now that we have the established team, it's time to pick an order. The order that would make the most sense is Avengers, then X-Men, then New Warriors. X-Men and Avengers are basically their own universes entirely, so combining them is going to be a hassle down the line. If I'm in the same position as the MCU was, I'd hire new and experienced talent so that we can build their name and reputation along with ours. Superhero movies weren't really that popular yet, so this could actually revolutionize the game entirely. Having new talent means they'll take their job more seriously and earn their pay rather than demand they get paid just for simply existing and doing other projects with a well-known face, even though they're not willing to put in the research for their actual roles. This saves time and money while building a legacy from the ground up. Now again, We got the Trinity set up again to make a format. We have our Trinity that will train the new generation and bring them under their wing. Iron Man brings in Spider-Man, Falcon, Black Panther, and Ant-Man, as they all use tech as their power. Cap brings the street level, non-powered or slightly enhanced heroes like Black Widow, Hawkeye, Daredevil, Punisher, and maybe Hulk. Thor brings in the magic with Ghost Rider, Blade, Iron Fist, Doctor Strange, and maybe Captain Marvel. Of course, there are smaller teams like the Fantastic Four, Guardians of the Galaxy, and Eternals, so it's more of a decision of, do we make shows that turn into movies, multiple movies fleshing out the characters, a few at a time to slowly build the team, or just take a risk and toss the whole team at once? Money-wise and quality-wise, it would be best to test out the small teams with shows to see how people receive them first, then make adjustments where needed to make them into movies. As far as sagas, again, if I'm limited like the MCU was, I'll make do with a universe that doesn't have Spider-Man or the X-Men, so I can show my prowess enough to market a deal with Sony, Fox, and Universal to incorporate their characters. I love to make a Spider-Verse on the side and even add to the Hulk legacy, but at the time, that would cost too much, and there hasn't been a good Hulk movie adaptation yet that the people universally love, so it's more of a gamble. Given my knowledge of the Hulk and his stories, I think about gambling him in just for the dynamic between him and Thor. But Spider-Man is where the biggest issue comes, along with Fox hoarding every single X-Men. To make everything flow better while leaving potential for a great deal with Sony, Fox, and Universal, I'd save Hulk, Spider-Man, and X-Men for the succeeding saga, since we can add the Spider-Man story to the X-Men and introduce Hulk fighting Wolverine. Again, this is assuming my Avengers setup wows the crowds enough to pressure a deal from the other networks. That being said, how should everything be structured? Well, following the Trinity, again, we make trilogies for each character and only combine their stories when needed for a big event. The main characters we can focus on for Wave 1 are the big three. So Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor. We need to establish a completely different vibe for each, because we don't want them to feel like a copy and paste formula. Iron Man is comedic, Thor is unintentionally funny, and Captain America is a serious one. That creates a balance of three different worlds. Now we fuel the formula and have Captain America more historical action, Thor more spiritual and grandiose, then Iron Man more nerdy with the tech and science. Now that we have a formula set, we need to establish the most important part of any story, the villain. Who are Iron Man's biggest villains? Mandarin, Stain, and Justin Hammer. For Thor, it's Loki, Hela, and Malekith. For Cap, it's Red Skull, Winter Soldier, and Zemo. Hydra and S.H.I.E.L.D. have to come into play to connect the storylines and create an Avengers level emergency. So that can be established in Iron Man and Captain America, while making Loki the villain that connects them all. Now we have the grand finale with the Trinity meeting, finding new friends with Black Widow, Hawkeye, Falcon possibly, and Hank Pym, Ant-Man. Now we have our Avengers lineup, but with Loki as our villain. And it's not hard to make Loki a great villain, as seen with all of his iterations. Now that Phase 1 is established, we expand a bit more with Phase 2 now that we have more people with the Avengers movie. The new stories would center around Hawkeye, Black Widow, Ant-Man, and Falcon, while using them to expand the roster a bit more. With Widow comes a Punisher intro. With Hawkeye comes a Daredevil intro due to Kingpin. With Ant-Man comes Wasp. And with Falcon comes Fanboying. Now, with Tony and Hank, we have Ultron. With Widow and Hawkeye, we have Taskmaster. With Falcon and Cap, we get AIM. And with Thor comes Doctor Strange, since their worlds will have to collide eventually. With Ultron comes a Wakanda visit, since he'd be looking into the strongest material to make a body for himself. So now we get introduced to Black Panther, and we have the potential for Vision, since he was created due to Ultron. See how the lineup is coming together without Spider-Man or Hulk in sight? Now, after the first crossover, we need a more grand enemy. So Ultron could be our recurring villain, or even the big bad for this saga, just so we have a blueprint for what comes next. To top Loki, we need someone like the Cabal or Dark Avengers. That would give Ultron and Loki more story power, as they could assemble either of these teams or both just to take down the Avengers, and that could be the main plot for the first saga. The Age of Ultron saga would be a great start to the MCU and leave way to improve, since it won't be so grand that it can't be topped, but also exciting enough to create anticipation for the next saga. Now that we have Ultron as the Saga 1 big bad, who could possibly top him? Well, we have Thanos, Galactus, and Doom to extend the sagas to at least 4 grand finales that could constantly one-up each other, showing the audience an organic process. Now, with that being said, you might be wondering, where does Kang fit in? And to that, I say, now that we have a bit of a formula now with how we want things to go, we can build up the next big bad by using the previous. Now that Ultron created all that chaos, we can move to Kang and have the multiverse war of timelines to show Iron Man that his objective of creating a veil over the world was never going to work, and that he needs to cope with that and prepare for the unexpected. That unexpected big bad will be the Black Order for the next Avengers event. But now we have more of a roster, adding space heroes like Captain Marvel, the Skrulls, the Kree, the Guardians, Nova, and the like. We set up this new saga with the Infinity Journey to set up for Thanos to wipe out half the universe, and either go creative with him like the MCU did and give him more of a purpose for it, or just stick with the Lady Death obsession, which would add Deadpool to the fray. Now at this point, I've created 2 solid sagas that could garner massive hype and pressure a deal with Sony, Fox, and Universal to let me use the other characters. Hopefully, it's for the Infinity Saga, so we can have Hulk and Thor versus Thanos, while having Spider-Man finally make an appearance. But even without them, this saga can still survive to a higher effect than it did with the original Infinity War and Endgame, since this Thanos won't be as polite about his erasure. With the fall of Thanos, now we need a big bad that can truly take his place. So we go to Galactus. Keep in mind, to connect all 3, we have Ultron was created to place a shield over the world from threats like Thanos. And the goal of Thanos wiping out life can be concluded as he was trying to save people the fate of meeting Galactus, the World Eater. Boom! Now that's 3 connected sagas. With this third one, we've established a deal to get all the characters now. Now we can create our own Spider-Verse, X-Men verse, Young Avengers verse, and set up for multiple events. In Saga 1 or 2, we could have Civil War with Cap versus Iron Man, given government regulation due to Ultron, then create Civil War 2 in the third saga with Captain Marvel and Black Panther as the counters now, while creating an X-Men versus Avengers conflict that ends with them banding together to fight Galactus. Boom! We could establish more heroes in the magical realm like Ghost Rider, Blade, and the Howling Commandos to create a Midnight Sun situation that could branch into something crazy later. Then we end everything with the fourth saga establishing Doom as the reason the apocalypse keeps coming to Earth, and have the Midnight Suns or magical team as his counter while they work with the scientific orientated team. We could even have Doom orchestrate the World Breaker Hulk fiasco in a previous saga, so it becomes a problem for the final one. There could be massive chaos, like a war of the gods, just to show how chaotic Doom truly is. With all that being said, in between sagas, I'd like to aid my competition, DC, into making great properties as well. So it not only keeps me on my toes to do better, but to establish a crossover with them to create massive buzz and break the internet with the first live action crossover series. That's assuming a perfect world, and I know I have to work harder for most of this to work out the way that I want it. I am writing my own animated MCU and live action DCU series of stories, so if you want to see my true scheme without company restrictions, check out the link in the bio. Like, share, subscribe, and comment to let me know your thoughts and theories. And until next time, stay lazy.